Ben had always been a solitary soul, finding solace in the quiet moments between the chaos of everyday life. Tonight, however, the solitude felt different, oppressive, almost. He had embarked on this night drive to clear his mind, seeking the therapeutic embrace of the open road. Little did he know that the journey would lead him into the heart of a mystery that would challenge his very sense of reality. As he pressed on, the headlights of his car sliced through the darkness, revealing the desolation of the surroundings. The dense forest seemed to swallow the road ahead, creating an otherworldly tunnel that stretched into the unknown. Unsettling shapes and shadows played tricks on his mind, causing him to question whether the twisted forms in the trees were mere figments of his imagination. But as he continued, a peculiar sensation crept over him, a feeling that the road itself was alive, winding and twisting with an unseen purpose. The forest, once a backdrop, now felt like a silent spectator, its ancient trees bearing witness to Ben's solitary journey into the unknown. Hours passed, and fatigue began to wear on him. The road seemed to stretch endlessly, its monotony interrupted only by the occasional flicker of his headlights against the darkness. Ben's surroundings became a blur, his tired eyes struggling to distinguish between reality and imagination. Ben entered the town with a mixture of trepidation and curiosity. The narrow streets were deserted, and the flickering streetlights cast long, ominous shadows on the weathered buildings. The air hung heavy with an unsettling stillness that whispered secrets of the past. As he drove through the silent streets, Ben noticed faded signs and dilapidated storefronts that hinted at a once thriving community. The few windows that weren't boarded up revealed interiors frozen in time, as if the townspeople had vanished without a trace. Unease settled in Ben's gut, and the thought of turning back crossed his mind. But a flicker of movement caught his eye, a figure standing at the end of a dimly lit alley. Squinting, he could barely make out the silhouette of a person, their features obscured by the shadows. Intrigued and hesitant, Ben parked his car and approached cautiously. The figure turned out to be an old man, his face weathered and eyes haunted by the way of time. "You shouldn't be here," he muttered cryptically, his voice carrying the weight of unseen burdens. Ben, fueled by a mixture of curiosity and stubbornness, pressed the old man for answers. The man spoke of a curse that had befallen the town, a curse that manifested itself in the shadows that danced upon the walls, a malevolent force that fed on the despair of those who dared to stay after dark. As the old man recounted tales of inexplicable disappearances and ghostly apparitions, Ben's skepticism waned. There was a raw sincerity in the old man's eyes that sent shivers down his spine. With a warning to leave before nightfall, the old man disappeared into the shadows, leaving Ben alone with the weight of the town's secrets. Determined to uncover the truth, Ben explored further. The town square, once the heart of community gatherings, now stood desolate and forlorn. Flickering streetlights cast elongated shadows that seemed to move with a sinister intent. The more he delved into the town's history, the more he realized that its past was intertwined with a darkness that defied logic. As nightfall approached, the town seemed to come alive with an otherworldly energy. Whispers echoed through the empty streets, and the shadows danced with a life of their own. Ben's heartbeat quickened, and an unshakable sense of dread settled over him. He knew he had to leave, but the road back seemed to have vanished, swallowed by the same darkness that clung to the town. Panicking, Ben retraced his steps, the labyrinthine streets becoming a disorienting maze. The air grew thick with an oppressive force, and the shadows closed in around him. Every corner he turned revealed a new nightmare, a spectral figure, a distant wail, a flicker of movement in the darkness. In a desperate attempt to escape, Ben stumbled upon an ancient chapel at the edge of town. The heavy wooden door groaned as he forced it open, revealing a dusty interior bathed in the pale light of a single flickering candle. A sense of sanctuary washed over him, but it was short-lived. The shadows outside the chapel seemed to converge, encircling the building with an ominous presence. As the candle flickered, casting eerie shadows on the chapel walls, Ben realized he was not alone. Whispers echoed through the sacred space, and ghostly figures materialized in the dim light. In that moment, Ben understood the depth of the curse that gripped the town. The shadows were not merely the absence of light. They were a manifestation of a malevolent force that sought to consume the very essence of those who dared to venture into its domain. The moon hung low in the ink-black sky, casting an eerie glow on the deserted road. Robert's hands gripped the steering wheel of his old battered sedan as he navigated the winding path through the dense forest. The trees seemed to loom over him like silent sentinels, their branches forming grotesque shadows that danced in the pale light. Robert had always enjoyed the solitude of night drives, finding solace in the rhythmic hum of the engine and the whisper of the wind outside his window. Tonight, however, was different. The air felt thick with an unspoken tension, and an inexplicable unease settled over him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was not alone on that desolate road. As his headlights cut through the darkness, revealing glimpses of the gnarled trees lining the route, Robert's eyes darted nervously from side to side. His imagination played tricks on him, conjuring shapes and figures in the shadows that disappeared as quickly as they appeared. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the periphery of his vision. Robert slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching in protest against the asphalt. He squinted into the darkness, heart pounding in his chest. A lone figure stood in the middle of the road, their silhouette barely discernible. "Hey, are you okay?" Robert called out, his voice echoing through the still night. No response. The figure remained motionless, a silent specter in the moonlight. The hairs on the back of Robert's neck stood on end as he cautiously approached. As he drew closer, details emerged. A tattered coat clung to the figure, and their face was hidden in the shadows. "Need a ride?" Robert offered, the unease in his gut growing. The figure slowly nodded, and without a word, they climbed into the passenger seat. The air inside the car seemed to thicken as Robert resumed his journey, his passenger's presence casting a heavy weight on the night. They sat in silence, the only sounds being the hum of the engine and the occasional rustle of leaves outside. Despite the silence, Robert's mind buzzed with questions. Who was this person? Why were they alone on this desolate road in the dead of night? The tension in the air escalated with each passing mile. As the car approached a dimly lit gas station in the distance, Robert's mysterious passenger spoke for the first time, their voice a low murmur that sent shivers down his spine. "Turn left here." Robert hesitated, glancing at the dimly lit gas station as he contemplated his options. Something about the stranger's request set off alarm bells in his mind, but curiosity and a sense of obligation prevailed. He turned left, guiding the car onto a narrow, unmarked road that disappeared into the shadows of the forest. The road twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the heart of the woods. The air grew colder, and the oppressive silence was only broken by the crunch of gravel beneath the tires. Robert stole glances at his enigmatic passenger, but their features remained obscured by the darkness. After what felt like an eternity, the road opened up to a clearing bathed in an ethereal silvery light. In the center stood an abandoned mansion, its windows shattered and ivy crawling up the crumbling walls. Robert's heart raced as he realized the gravity of the situation. What had he stumbled upon? And why had he followed this stranger into the unknown? "We're here," the passenger whispered, their voice echoing in the desolate clearing. Robert parked the car, the engine's steady hum now accompanied by the distant howls of unseen creatures. As he stepped out, the passenger followed suit, their movements unnaturally smooth. The mansion seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, its broken windows framing the yawning darkness within. Robert's instincts screamed at him to flee, but a strange compulsion kept him rooted to the spot. The stranger beckoned him forward, leading him through the decaying grandeur of the mansion's entrance. The air inside was thick with a chilling stillness. Dust particles danced in the moonlight filtering through the broken roof. The stranger stopped, their gaze fixed on a faded portrait hanging crookedly on the wall. "This place holds a dark secret," They intoned, their voice carrying a haunting resonance. Robert's eyes widened as he recognized the face in the portrait, a striking resemblance to the passenger. Before he could react, the stranger turned to him, revealing a face identical to the one in the portrait, frozen in a mask of sorrow. "I needed you to bring me here, Robert," they confessed, the truth sinking in like a stone in a bottomless well. "Now you're trapped in the echoes of my past, bound to this place as I once was." The mansion groaned, and the shadows within began to writhe, taking form and substance. Robert's surroundings blurred as the spectral figures of a tragic history unfolded before him. The night drive had become a descent into a realm where time and regret converged.